So if you are a Nintendo fan, obviously today was a huge day for you because we got the September 13th, 2022 Nintendo Direct presentation that did have multiple new game reveals, some very hype announcements, title reveals for things like the sequel to Breath of the Wild that we now know the name of, as well as some very notable rumored projects that were missing from this presentation altogether. And we have to go over all the details and break down what this means for the future of releases on the Nintendo Switch in 2022 and 2023 right now. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we got a plethora of topics to break down and discuss today, all surrounding the Nintendo Direct presentation that did indeed take place earlier this morning, which opened up with a brand new Fire Emblem game known as Fire Emblem Engaged. Yes, this was the one that we presumably saw leaked screenshots from earlier on, and the protagonist being that red and blue hair combination. You may remember this game being leaked earlier in the year, and we now have official confirmation that it will be coming out. From there, we got the Game of the Year at the Game Awards. It Takes Two, completely confirmed and will be headed to the Nintendo Switch, which I think is a big win and a positive because that game just looks like it belongs on the Nintendo Switch, especially considering it revolves around co-op gameplay, and I mean, it won Game of the Year, so it definitely had a lot of fans talking, and I'm glad we can report that that one will be headed to the Switch. Now, we won't be going over every single announcement that was there because, to be quite honest, and the first opinion piece of this Direct is that there was a lot of smaller games at this presentation that were either existing titles on other platforms or maybe just some ones for certain fan bases that didn't do a whole lot for me throughout the presentation. Tunic is one that did stand out, however, as this is a heavily Zelda-inspired style game, and I do think that it will be extremely enjoyable to boot this up on the Nintendo Switch OLED. I'll probably play it myself in handheld mode on the go when I have some time in between my day in and day out tasks, and I'm happy that this is headed to the Switch. Octopath Traveler 2 will absolutely be a huge one for JRPG fans, and the one thing that stands out to me about this game is how beautiful the HD 2D style really can look when given a full development budget, and this will absolutely be a very cool game to pay attention to as we get closer to its release. We did also get a brief update on Sparks of Hope. However, we got a pretty deep dive into that game at Ubisoft's event over the weekend. Just good to see it featured in the Direct period. Now, the next notable section to me that we have to spend a little bit of time on because it had one of the bombshell announcements from this Direct that honestly I didn't even anticipate coming. I thought there was a chance, but it actually happened. We have GoldenEye headed to Nintendo Switch Online and an entire roadmap update for N64 games, as my thought process was, if Nintendo is not ready to go with something like Game Boy Color, Game Boy Original, and Game Boy Advance on Nintendo Switch Online, it would likely be a reselling point on the existing N64 games that they are planning to add into the service, with definitely a banger game needing to be included in there, as Nintendo likes to use their September Directs as a marketing ploy to get people to resubscribe to NSO, because that is oftentimes around the date that people's subscriptions expire, and boy did they do that with a very exciting roadmap of future N64 games to come, as we have Mario Party 1 through 3 completely confirmed for the service, all coming over with online play. Yes, you can play your classic Mario Party games in the modern era going forward on Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2. This is a huge win for me personally because I have a ton of nostalgia for those games, specifically around the mini game portion being so much fun to experience, and I will absolutely be hopping online and playing through some of those mini games with friends that I grew up playing it with on the Nintendo Switch in 2022 or 2023, depending on when they get released. And I believe both of those are actually slated for 2023, as there was an infographic that shows when certain games are coming in terms of the year. Now, in addition to that, you have Excitebike, Pilot Wing 64, and the big one for me, 1080 Snowboarding. I've been dying to replay that game since the N64 era. I definitely have fond memories of going hours and hours and completing all of the challenges and story mode single player in that title, and for whatever reason, that stands out as a quality snowboarding game in my personal opinion. Then the big one more thing was none other than GoldenEye coming to Nintendo Switch Online with online play support, which why would you leave that out on such an iconic game like GoldenEye? But the rumors were true. Rare developers that were spotted unlocking achievements absolutely was hinting to this thing happening. Also, the Germany ban lift, we've talked about it numerous times on the channel. The game is finally confirmed and will be coming to Nintendo Switch Online, although we don't know when. It will also be headed to Xbox Game Pass, as shortly after this trailer went live, there was one that confirmed that it would be coming to Game Pass as well. And what's interesting is at this point in time, we don't know what the Xbox version and Nintendo Switch versions really look like in terms of gameplay, and will there be a stark contrast between the two, or will Xbox essentially be getting the same version as Nintendo Switch Online, just with maybe some higher resolution support like 4K and things like that, since that's what the Series X can support. But we can finally put the rumor mill speculation talk to bed around whether or not GoldenEye will ever see the light of day again. MGM, Nintendo, and Microsoft all worked out a deal together to get this game brought back. And yes, Sony unfortunately will be missing out on this title altogether, because this is kind of one of those situations where the rights holders are the ones that are bringing it back together, and they want to make sure they get their piece of this title on their platform, and that is it. Now, one interesting note from this section is Nintendo's wording around how they would release these N64 games, as they said they will gradually be added into the service. Now, whether or not that means we're going off the trail of the up to this point predictable one new N64 game added to the service per month remains to be seen, but I do think you could make an argument for that. However, if GoldenEye is out this year, and I think it is, I think we are set for 2022, as on the infograph you can see games like Pilot Wing 64, Mario Party, and Mario Party 2, and if you slot GoldenEye in there, we only have 4 months left of 4 games that we are missing for 2022, so that would honestly round out the roadmap and make a lot of sense. Then we have 5 to look forward to in 2023, but if we go a month or two without an N64 game release, I will think that phrase gradually did indeed play into Nintendo's release schedule here, because there's nothing that commits them to sticking to 1 per month going forward. So I'm hopeful they do, but we will have to wait and see for that. Now, next up was an interesting update, because it had to do with Mario Kart Wave 3 Booster Course Pass DLC, but they only showed 2 of the 4 tracks, and why that is, I don't know, but Merry Mountain and Peach Gardens will be headed as part of this Wave 3. There's probably all 4 tracks confirmed online somewhere. I haven't gone and looked for them. I believe we already know them due to the leak and everything that's tied around these tracks, but you do have to wonder why Nintendo felt the need to only include 2 of the 4. It's like they ran out of time with all the different things they had in this event. They felt like we couldn't show all 4 tracks for some reason. That was just an odd thing that threw me off, but regardless, we know that this holiday we will be getting Wave 3 for the Booster Course Pass DLC update. We also saw some Nintendo sports game updates, both with Nintendo Switch Sports and even Mario Strikers Battle League. I am kind of done with sports titles in Nintendo in the modern era. Not that they're bad games by any means, but they're just releasing very light on content, and Nintendo slowly drip feeds the update. I am not a fan of that, so we're not going to spend any more time talking about those games. A big portion of the event did then unfold when Miyamoto came on screen and gave us updates around multiple projects. My mind went to potentially some kind of new Mario game in wishful hopes and thinking, but that was not what it was. However, there is one very exciting new game that will be getting added in as a Nintendo Switch installment, but he started off stating that yes, the movie is still going to be out in spring of next year, being the Mario movie. They also said that the Universal theme park in California is well underway and on path to be open next year. And then they spent, in my opinion, way too much time on Pikmin Bloom, which is a mobile game, kind of looks Pokemon Go-esque, but they spent, I don't know, a solid 3 to 4 minutes showing off different features of this thing. And no offense to mobile game players out there, but it's just, I couldn't care less about this, and I definitely didn't feel like it needed a deep dive when you follow it up with a very hype announcement like Pikmin 4 that is now officially confirmed as a 2023 game, but then we don't get any gameplay for Pikmin 4, and rather a brief screenshot that kind of shows a different perspective that will be featured in this title. And I do think it's great news that after all these years, Pikmin fans can finally look forward to the 4th installment. I just thought it was an interesting way to unveil it, and clearly I think that this is a further off in 2023 project, as if they're not ready to show gameplay at the end of 2022, we could be talking about the the tail end of 2023, if not delayed into 2024. Now, we got a brief Bayonetta 3 update, but there is also a 7-minute gameplay trailer that launched right after the Direct, so be sure to go check that out if you want more info and footage on Bayonetta 3. Resident Evil Village, Biohazard 2 and 3 will all be coming to the Nintendo Switch, and you guessed it, as cloud ports, which immediately, I couldn't care less. I'm not going to pick up these games on the Switch whatsoever. I will play them on other consoles. I could care less about cloud ports on the Switch. I honestly wish it wasn't a thing at all. It is not really a good way to experience games, especially for the first time. If I was a brand new Kingdom Hearts fan and I wanted to boot up those games on the Switch, the last way I would ever recommend anybody to play them is through the cloud version. It is just never a good experience for most people outside of blazing fast, rock solid internet that most people don't have. And so this one for me was a lot of nothing, just because cloud was attached to all of those titles coming over. And this is a reason why, when we talk about the idea of more powerful Switch hardware, that I'm very excited for that prospect, because developers, whether or not they can technically make it work on Switch hardware, choose to go the lazy way a lot of times and do cloud projects because they just think it's too much work or too much development time to scale down the resolutions, to do all the tweaks you have to do to make some of these higher end games run on the Switch. And I personally would have had a completely different tone with these games coming over to Nintendo's platforms if they weren't cloud. Sifu and Final Fantasy Crisis Core will be coming to the Switch, so definitely all great news there. Kirby is getting the most blowout love and support for his 30th anniversary than I've seen for any other franchise, to be quite honest, as this just feels like the year of Kirby in 2022. And we do now have Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, which is a port from the Wii coming over to the Nintendo Switch. This is a quality Kirby game. I will pick this up. I will have some fun with it. It does support 4-player co-op play, and it will be out February 24th, 2023 on the Nintendo Switch. Now, at this point in the Direct, I was starting to ask a lot of questions because they were already over that 40-minute mark that we could have expected for the entire thing to take place. So we now had to come to terms with the fact that we're not getting Metroid Prime Remaster, or maybe that's the show closer. We're not getting a Metroid Prime 4 development update. Where are Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD? Is that the one last thing, or are we going to get Breath of the Wild 2 something? And the answer has finally come, that the title reveal and trailer for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is a title that I don't think anybody predicted, and it is not Breath of the anything, will be out on May 12th, 2023. By the way, this trailer looks absolutely fantastic, and it feels like Skyward Sword 2 when you look at it, because they are putting a heavy emphasis on the clouds. We saw the dive mechanic that we saw in the patent, where Link can shoot down faster below. We even saw like elevator mechanics taking you all the way back up to the cloud. It was still a very brief look at the actual gameplay side of things, but a hype one at that. When Link just pushed open that massive door, that is very exciting in and of itself. There's also the official logo and artwork. We did get not a deep look at gameplay and a blowout by any means, but at least the final release date, which I think is later than most Zelda fans were expecting, myself included, and a hint towards some things that I'm sure some people will absolutely deep dive and pick apart what all of those writings on the walls were at the very start of the trailer, and maybe some small in-between details that I missed personally will get explained. The Master Sword has a crazy digital ancient technology look to the bottom part of the blade, which we had previously saw the Master Sword broken in the last update trailer around the delay. And the logo kind of being the reminiscent of the two dragons eating each other is very interesting to me, and I do like the title Tears of the Kingdom, or TOTK. We can stop saying Breath of the Wild 2. Tears of the Kingdom is the new thing to focus on for this Zelda project. And the elephant in the room is that the big GameCube remaster blowouts that a lot of people were expecting absolutely were not at this event. And the reality is that Mr. Grubb may have to shave his head, unfortunately, because it doesn't look like we're getting Metroid Prime Remaster at this point in time, at least this year. Who knows if internal plans changed, but the going out of the way to say Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD would for sure be there, and they are not. Definitely let a lot of Zelda fans down, I am sure, myself included, because I absolutely did want those games to come over. And the reality is now, if you want to play those titles, we will not see them on the Nintendo Switch any sooner than 2024 at the bare minimum, if they make it over at all, because 2023 with a May release for Tears of the Kingdom will absolutely be that focus for Zelda, and we won't get any additional Zelda games more than likely outside of a spin-off, I guess, that you could entertain the idea of. So go buy a used Wii U if you really have to play those games anytime soon, because I think the rumor has finally been put to bed that the ports from GameCube or HD remasters coming over from the Wii U to the Switch are just not going to happen in the foreseeable future. Now, F-Zero GX was another heavily rumored game that was not there. Nintendo very well may be working on that, just chose not to reveal it at this event. And if you're a hardcore Metroid fan, there is a lot to be desired, because we don't know anything about Metroid Prime 4, and we have nothing else Metroid to hold us over while we're waiting on any kind of update for that game. So could some of these projects get updated and revealed at the February Direct? Absolutely. The two that are no longer in the cards for anyone's hopes and expectations should be the classic GameCube ports of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, and that is a hard pill to swallow for me, because I really wanted to see those games come over. So ultimately for me, I'm conflicted on this Direct. I was absolutely blown away by the GoldenEye announcement coming to NSO, huge high point for me, and then closing with an updated trailer for Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom with a May 12th, 2023 release date. At least we know that stuff now. Those are the positives. The letdowns were absolutely a lot of the leaks and rumors flared up around this being a super hype blowout event again, and that's where we have to remember as Nintendo fans, until Nintendo announces anything, it is fun to speculate and talk about the likelihood of these projects, but nothing is confirmed until they pull back the curtain and confirm it themselves. I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video on all your personal thoughts and expectations around this Direct. Are you feeling pumped and hyped for the future Nintendo Switch releases going forward after this event, or are you let down that we didn't get many of the rumored projects that were talked about leading into it? And definitely share with me where your hype levels fall for games like GoldenEye coming to NSO, in addition to the official title reveal for the sequel to Breath of the Wild being Tears of the Kingdom. What do you think that plays into the story elements that Nintendo didn't want to reveal that this whole time because people might decode it and things? Do you have any theories? What do you think some of the intro artwork was? How the Master Sword looks and the logo? I want to hear from you guys, regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, where we break down the official announcement from Nintendo around today's Direct and do our final thoughts and predictions around what games may be featured there, which you can now go compare and contrast with what was actually revealed. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.